Right, okay, welcome to the first of 4 short lectures which together comprise lecture 1, which is talking about the reasons why we analyse food, when we do chemical analysis of food. So this one starts off with why. Let's move on a bit. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about where we care. I'll give some examples and you can maybe have a think about some examples yourself. We'll talk about breaking down the reasons why we break down the information we have about food. Look at quantifying ingredients, nutrients, talk a bit about food labels, and then wrap it up by giving some examples of the safety of food and why this is important. So why do chemical analysis of food? It's impossible to list all the reasons why food is chemically analysed. Governments want to check that food is safe and has the correct labelling. Food industry is concerned with the quality of its raw materials, how things change through processing, packaging and distribution. Scientific research is interested in looking at impacts on nutrition and health, and also perhaps the safe limits of toxins. We've got some examples of that a bit later on. Another reason might be to ensure that some foods with protective status only come from certain parts of the country. So, for example, Cornish pasties must come from Cornwall. Wensleydale cheese must come from Wensleydale. So this is something for you to stop the video and go off, preferably in small groups. Suggest reasons for the chemical analysis of food. Try to think of some specific examples of foods and reasons why we might want to understand their chemistry. Collect together, post them onto Teams, and we'll have a look at this a little bit later on in the session or in the next session. Yeah, so analysis of food. Food is complex. It's said to be heterogeneous, which means it consists of lots of different things, often in varying amounts. So it is one of the most complicated things to analyse. So here's something you hopefully haven't had for breakfast, a traditional fried English breakfast, which consists of a lot of different ingredients. We can break them down in terms of the ingredients. So bacon through to tomatoes. I've also included the processing methods there. Fried, in many cases, sometimes grilled as well, which I think I've got on the next slide coming up. So that's one way of looking at it. Obviously in this case, just saying we've got, how many of this is 8 different ingredients, doesn't tell us that much. What we probably need to know is the weight of the individual ingredients, which is starting to give us some information which is going to be a bit more useful. And the other thing we'll probably look at is nutrition. So the macronutrients, what people mostly talk about, carbohydrates, lipids, that is to say fats, and proteins, but of course all food is largely water. And also minerals and vitamins. Minerals are unlikely to be damaged by processing. They may become more or less bioavailable. Vitamins, many of them are damaged by heat, but in some cases some vitamins and some chemicals called phytochemicals are made more available through cooking, for example. So phytochemicals are substances which appear to have benefits to human health, but in ways that aren't completely quantified or understood yet. So I broke this down a little bit further. I, in this case, looked at the nutritional content of each of these items. In some cases, I had to use grilled rather than fried because I couldn't find the information for fried. This is taken from McCants and Widdowson, which you should be familiar with from last year, and we'll mention again a little bit later on in this series of lectures. And I've colour-coded a little in one way. So look at protein. I've got the things that are high protein in green, because people tend to think that's a good thing, whereas for lipids and carbohydrates and also energy, I put the things that are high in red, because people tend to view that they are a bit less sort of beneficial. Not everyone quotes the amount of water available in food, but as we can see from the examples we've got there, food, as I mentioned, is mostly water. Now this information is available in the spreadsheet that's referenced there, which is in the notes on Blackboard. So why do we care? One of the reasons obviously we care about is nutrition. So if we look at the weight of the nutrients, we consider the nutrients it contains, lipids, fats, carbohydrates, for example, think about their contribution to the diet. Then we can do some comparison to guidelines. Now this is an example of what's called the traffic light labelling, and it's saying that the salt is probably too high, calories okay, the other stuff that's in the green is probably just fine, and that's okay. That gives you some basic information, but it doesn't necessarily relate it to individuals. Piece of yogurt, if you look at the information for yogurt, it's presented in a couple of different ways. 100 gram, which I always think is more useful, quarter pot, which I don't think is useful at all, how big is a pot. But it also has the percentage based on the guideline daily amounts for women. So for energy, it's saying 100 grams would be 3.8% of the energy. And if you go right down the bottom, calcium, 100 grams of this yogurt would provide 26% of the calcium. So that's quite useful information. And again, we've noticed it's colour-coded there in green. This doesn't contain anything red. We're just saying that the ones that are there are in the good areas, generally speaking. Okay, so here's an exercise. A link to this are some videos. So you want to stop this presentation and access the video on food labelling. Look at a range of food products and identify the key 5 sets of nutritional information on each. Something for you to do on your own. Maybe we'll come back and probably talk about this in a video chat a bit later on. So you can stop the video now, you can come back later on and do this. Okay, here's another different reason. One is safety. We talked a bit about nutrition so far, but often we're interested in, is food safe to eat? Microbiology is a key concern, but that's covered in other modules. So here's one example with a number of students doing some projects on this. This is Cancer pagurus, commonly known as the edible crab or brown crab. It's a species of crab found around the North Sea. If you locally caught crab, it's probably of this species. Most of our crabs are claimed at least to come from the local seaport of Whitby, which is just down the coast. It's good food, but there are some worries that some species may contain too much of the heavy metal cadmium. This can be toxic to the kidneys and cause bones to lose calcium. So again, chemical analysis is needed to find out how much cadmium is present, and whether it is in fact a risk to human health, and how many crabs you could eat. They're quite expensive, so I guess people don't eat that many. Okay, so here's a student project that was done last year looking at metal contamination of crabs. And they found a particular amount, about 0.6 micrograms. Little squiggle next to 5.98 is micro, meaning millionths of a gram. So it's not much, but as we'll notice, the EU standard for the maximum is only about 1 microgram, so it's not that much higher. And also, the student found differences between male and female crabs. And there are differences between different parts of the crab anatomy, the brown meat and the white meat, for example. So again, this presentation, which is a finally a poster, is available in the notes and it's referenced there, so you'll find that on Blackboard. Yeah, so here's something else that you may well remember, what I refer to as My Little Pony burgers. In 2013, we discovered that foods advertised as containing beef, in fact, contained horse meat. In some cases, 100% of the meat content was horse meat. This was detected by DNA analysis done by the Food Standards Agency. Okay, so that's the first lecture, the first introductory lecture. I'll stop there. We'll come back and we'll talk about some other stuff in the next bit. Thank you for listening.